Jor-El the Dawn, baby. From the house of L to the house of hoes, got a little mission for you, son. Listen close. Yo, Cal, you my legacy, my flesh, my clone. Now go to Earth and make that planet your home. But don't just save them, breed them, feel me? Flying smooth, make them cry, oh really? You got strength of 10 men, game like Zeus. Cape in the wind in the tight blue suit. Ain't no villain that could block your aim, so why not drop seeds and lock the game? Son, this biology ain't no fluke. You a walking god, now execute. Make super babies, fill the charts. I ain't die for you to chase no heart. Smash them all, Cal, plant that name. From farm girls to queens, it's all the same. Be the daddy of earth, the prime L spawn. Spread house of L till the break of dawn. Breed them up, Cal, breed them fast. Legacy's fire, gotta make it last. Don't fight fate, be the stud I plan. I'm watching from stars with the master hand. Lex got tech, Bruce got cash, but you got genes that'll outlive Flash. You ain't here just to punch and fly, you here to make them babies cry. He my guy. Tell Lois Lane she the first in line, but don't act shy when it's overtime. I built the fortress, now make it a crib for 20 little supers in a rocket ship fridge. You ain't just Cal, you the seed of fate. Gotta repopulate, dominate, create. Go on, my son, be the myth, the man. Smash them respectfully, that's the plan. Smash them all, Cal, plant that name. From farm girls to queens, it's all the same. Be the daddy of earth, the prime L spawn. Spread house of L till the break of dawn. Breed them up, Cal, breed them fast. Legacy's fire, gotta make it last. Don't fight fate, be the stud I plan. I'm watching from stars with the master hand. House of L, baby. From Krypton's ashes to Earth's backseat. Do it for your daddy in the multiverse, you heard?
I'm Captain Lou Albano talking to you about drugs. Kids, don't be afraid to say no. Anyone that asks you to use drugs is not your friend. Drugs can and will kill. Remember, don't be afraid to turn to your priest, your rabbi, your minister, your moms, your dads, your teachers, because drugs can kill. And if you do drugs, you go to hell before you die.
Pepsi Man! Pepsi Man! Pepsi Man! Go, go, RX! Pepsi Man! Pepsi Man! Go, go, RX! Pepsi Man! Pepsi, Pepsi! Pepsi Man! RX!
I was not very steeped in the comics.
I didn't read any comics or do any research.
I wasn't familiar with the comics. I wasn't familiar with the movies.
We didn't lean into a whole lot of the history of the comic books.
Yeah, candidly, we were not enormous comic fans.
I wasn't super into superhero comics when I was a kid. I read a lot of like indie press stuff.
First thing I was told is don't read the comics.
Really? As a creator, they put you in a bubble. They don't let you talk about any of the other projects, right?
You know, they're up for anything.
We ultimately decided to redefine it for the series and thought that it worked better for the story that we're trying to tell.
Did you ever read you've never read the comic?
When the DVD comes out, I'm going to read a Thor comic book and just see where we went wrong.
You're probably wondering how I got here. Well, it all started with me saying, I gotta know, is it real? Is Planet Gatorade really real? Is it really, really real? So I took a Gatorade rocket out into the... Yeah, no, there's no Gatorade pun there. I literally traveled through space inside of a Gatorade rocket, and it was going great until we started going way too fast, and, you know... With Gatorade, speed control is a little difficult, and so off we went, and I crash-landed. You know, I crash-landed. I mean, come on, like, look, I obviously, like, you know, it's in one piece, nobody died. Nobody died. And that's how I met Coolia Blue. So there I was on Earth, like, I gotta find Planet Gatorade, because I know there's a beautiful woman there that's waiting for me to steal her heart. And she was like, oh, Cider, you're so brave coming all the way across the galaxy to be my boyfriend. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly why I'm here. And it worked. Son of a bitch, it worked. I'm still in the copyright defensible Megazord. Man, that's the last time I marinate chicken in Gatorade.
You wanna see the danger rise higher. You wanna see the world on fire. But we're the ones who stand and turn it back. The power's here, the Zeo Force attacks. Go, go, Power Rangers Zeo, stronger than the chains of iron. Power Rangers Zeo, rushing through the wall of fire. Zeo Rangers, power This twisted empire of machines, crushing every world with gears and evil schemes. But Zeo's light is burning bright inside, powered up with Zeo
The cage is breaking, I can feel it shake. A fire's burning, nothing left to take. Through storm and shadow, I hear your call. My wild wing love, you will tear these walls. Where is the force that can lift me high? Where is the flame that will light the sky? I know you're out there, I can feel your breath. You'll crash like thunder and cut through death. Every heartbeat strikes the chain. Every heartbeat calls your name. I need my wild wing love, breaking the silence above. I need my wild wing love, tearing the darkness apart. With wild wing love.
Have you or a loved one been injured in a Moon Witch related monster battle? You may be entitled to compensation.
We can't let it end like this. We can't let her win.
For 10,000 years, Zordon has been trapped beyond reach, sealed away in a time barrier created during his final battle with Rita Repulsa. When Rita escapes her lunar prison, the universe expects her to return to dominance until a stranger descends like a spider. Vexala, a sorceress from the future, fuses with Rita in a storm of power. From that moment, the galaxy itself bends under a darker will, as Angel Grove becomes the front line in a war that began long before these Rangers were ever born. With Zordon lost, guidance falls to Dulcia, the last warrior of the Order of Meridian, and Alpha 5, its surviving junior member. The viewing globe chooses 5 teenagers based on the capacity of their souls for good. Awkward, flawed, and untested, they are nevertheless bound by a desire for righteous justice. Teen genius Billy Cranston has upgraded the power coins, reforged to withstand the battles ahead. Yet one coin is beyond his reach, the green power coin, hidden centuries ago by Ninjor, who erased his own memory to keep Rita from finding the coin. The green coin lies guarded by the Dragon Zord and the mighty Titanus, a secret buried in the heart of Angel Grove. The Vexala's schemes outpace the Ranger's growth. In a brutal clash, she captures the green coin and seizes control of the Dragon Zord, crippling Titanus in the process. To wield this power, she forges something monstrous, an entirely evil Green Ranger construct, born from the heart of Dark Spectre and bound by her command. The result is not a corrupted hero, but a living weapon, designed to shatter the Rangers' unity. The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers' journey becomes more than weekly battles. It's a treasure hunt across the Order of Meridian's legacy. Every victory unearths pieces of Zordon's mysterious hidden past, and every mistake strengthens Vexala's grip on the future. With Zordon's return uncertain and Vexala's empire expanding, the fate of the galaxy hinges on 5 souls chosen by light in a war born of darkness.
Is my daughter. Well, I'll tell ya, it sure doesn't smell like Rita in here.
So I was loring my head off today, like just going all over the place, making sure that everything was properly explained, because as it stands right now, there is at least 3 lore videos associated with the Save the Hollow Earth storyline that you guys, when you asked it for more Season X, that's what I got, is Save the Hollow Earth. But it occurred to me while I was doing all this loring that most of you who are coming across this information did not catch Season X1 or Season X2. Those kind of went by pretty quick. I drug my feet on this one because this is the big one. This is the end. This is Season X3. This is the finale of the story that I've been building with Vexala, the new villainess that I introduced into this in order to shake things up. The problem with a lot of the Mighty Morphin reboots that you see, sprinkled in around the history of the franchise is that it's always Rita. And it's not that Rita's done anything wrong. It's just sort of like, okay, Space Witch, it's a lot of times now. We've seen this enough. We can move on. All right. We can try something different. There are lots of other problems in the Mighty Morphin Power Ranger universe that could come to fruition for them. My solution to that was, of course, creating a new villain that is disrupting the timeline and creating all of these changes that you are seeing. Okay. So just to be abundantly clear, in case anybody has wandered in here and seeing this and seeing how well this has been executed. Yeah, you're right. How well it's been executed. I'll say that. I'm proud of that. if they're wondering, this is not Hasbro approved, officiated, none of this. This is, you might as well consider this a fan film, a fan fiction on steroids. It is, you know, I can't obviously put together a whole movie because Hasbro will definitely send the black helicopters at sunset after me. And I don't need that kind of attention. I don't know about you, but I don't need that kind of attention. So for now, please, if you're going to go out and talk about this, even with your friends, like, hey, I saw this cool thing, just please stress that this is not real. All right. As much as we would like it to be real, the bad news about all this is that even if Hasbro fell in love with the Mighty Morphin Season X concept and all the things I've done with it, and they love every last little itsy bitsy piece of it, it cannot ever legally be moved over to a full season as it exists anyway. Because if you recall, there was a copyright case about Batman. Let me see if I could dig that up real quick. Copyright case, Batman movie. Let's see here. Where did that go? Warner Brothers, copyright infringement. Where did that go? Riddler. Let's see if I can narrow it down there. Well, anyway, there was a copyright case, and I guess it's just vanished from Google's results because Warner Brothers doesn't want to talk about it anymore. Sorry about that delay. But there was a copyright case where a guy accused, I think it was Matt Reeves or Warner Brothers, of stealing his idea for the Riddler versus Batman and turning it into the Batman movie that came out a couple of years ago. And so that recently concluded with, no, that was not the case. But since then, Hasbro and several other corporations have pulled up the ladder of access. If you want to go over and check out Hasbro Spark, that's where you can submit toy ideas to Hasbro. They still have the page active. There's a big banner that says you can't submit right now, and we don't know when we'll let you do that again. And down on the bottom, there's the email field where you'd begin like entering your information to start the process of submitting, and that's been frozen, although it's still there on the screen, like it's taunting you. Like, ooh, you almost had it. So close, you almost had it. So annoying. But that's what we are looking at with this, is that even if everybody on Earth said, we want Mighty Morphin Season X, legally, Hasbro has made the decision that that is impossible now, okay? Even if they hired me, and if Chris Cox himself showed up on my doorstep today and said, hey, we need you. You're the last, the 11th hour solution we have. Okay. So come on through. You can do whatever you want with the franchise. I legally cannot use what I've created. Some of the designs could certainly come through, but they'll have to be changed, and probably should be anyway. But we just want to make it abundantly clear to everybody watching this before we begin any part of it. Okay. As a disclaimer, what you're seeing here can never be official. All right. So if that ruins your expectations of what's going to happen in this stream, I'm very sorry. But what I've done is I have taken a look at the landscape on YouTube. There's a lot of people out there like Estee and the Morphin Master who do lore videos and opinion videos about existing Power Rangers media. And I was like, man, those guys, they kind of got it down packed, and they know like a lot of the deep lore. And for me, I like the deep lore of it, but I don't keep up with the comics and the video games and things like that much. Some of it I do, like the high end of it, like Shattered Grid, I paid attention to, but man, I don't follow any of the rest of that. It's just kind of like over my head, I guess. Like the comic stuff is so dry. It is so agenda driven, like even more than the show. And the show won a GLAAD award, for God's sakes. So, you know, I'm just making a point here about this, that Hasbro has set out to do what they're going to do. And even if they liked all of this, they legally can't bring it through, even if you created something. So what I've done is I've come to fill the gap. All right. As you look around the internet, the best you can do for new Mighty Morphin content comes from the Ninja Kids, who are doing a Mighty Morphin show. And when I say Mighty Morphin content, I meant Power Ranger content. My apologies. And by new Power Ranger content, I mean like shows, not people discussing it, obviously. And again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I know I'm putting a lot of disclaimers here, but there's, you know, it's been brought to my attention that this looks a little too real. Okay. And that's my fault, because I study tokusatsu pretty closely. I want to make my own like real deal tokusatsu someday. And so I'm fascinated with how to like create the most effective visuals possible to convey my vision of that. And that tends to come through with, holy cow, this looks like a real thing. So just bear in mind when I'm talking to you about this stuff and I'm showing you the visuals, it is not real. It's not official. Hasbro didn't hire me. This isn't like a failed reboot design project that the NDA is expired on or something. There's none of that. There's no reason to go out there and spread information that I am some kind of contractor that is getting revenge on Hasbro or something like that. That's not the case. I'm just a fan of the entire genre of tokusatsu, and I'm using Mighty Morphin as a way to illustrate my point of how this entire franchise, the Power Rangers franchise, needs to evolve. And it doesn't need to go crazy. As I've said before, we don't need to move into, like gore and sex and swears and all that other stuff. We don't need to go that far, but we can go up to that line. If you want to take just one step back from what Michael Bay was doing with the Transformers franchise, you probably have the right angle to go with. Now, when it comes to like Megan Fox's midriff being sprayed down before they started taking film there, that's not what I'm talking about. Moreover, I'm just talking about the stakes and the villain motivations. You notice in Power Rangers, the villains are just sort of like, I am here to destroy the thing because of the stuff. They're not really motivated by anything other than what the season itself is hinging upon. It's man, I forget the villain from Dino Charge. It was a really, simplistic name too, and it's so bad. It wasn't Thrasher, but it was like right up there with it. Do you guys know in the chat? Do you guys know out in the chat? I just want to say hello to everybody while we're answering that question. How about that? If you guys remember the name of the Dino Charge villain, I forget what his name is, but we will take a hello to the chat while you guys maybe help me with that one. So we got Austin McNeil here saying, hey, Cider, how's it going? Well, as I said, I was loring my head off this morning, putting together the video I promised, and I was like, oh, crap. There's a ton of people out there that just do not know what is going on here and have stumbled upon probably some pretty cool looking stuff and have no point of reference for what it means. So that's why all that disclaimer, that front loading was there, because I really need to make it clear to everybody that as much as anybody or everybody may like this, it cannot ever come to be. Maybe as a fan film, and that's with a lot of legal padding, okay? Like even more than what the White Dragon was going through with JDF. God rest his soul. We have Mr. Scary Pasta here saying, dude, this is epic. I hope my PR series turns out as awesome as this. Not that it'll ever leave the writing phase. It's just an expanded universe idea. Well, later on, after I finish the Hollow Earth Season X and Introduction to Zeo, I am going to split off and talk about what can be done with the existing Power Rangers media that Hasbro owns. It occurred to me while I was generating some stuff the other day that, man, they own all of this. They have the legal right from Toei to produce toys and instruments based off of, I say instruments, but not like guitars and stuff, but maybe, I don't know. But they have permission from Toei to make toys out of what's used in the Power Rangers footage and the Super Sentai footage. And so why aren't they doing that, And so that's why I sat back. I was talking to Spencer about this almost a month ago now, about the Ninja Steel Gold Ranger. I want to call him the Gold Star Ranger, but that would be too cool. I don't think they called him that. But that character has an amazing potential to just be plucked out of the Ninja Steel storyline completely. Just take that suit and pluck it out of there and tell a completely different story about that particular Power Ranger being on his own. He's not with the rest of the team. He doesn't have his giant robot, and he is mostly focused on hunting vampires. Because he is like that symbol on his chest there, the Ninja Steel symbol, or the Ninja symbol, if you want to go back to the Sentai footage, that can be a symbol of the sun. And so you have a gold cowboy literally radiating the light of the sun, plunging himself into the belly of darkness, fighting vampires. Okay? You don't need to go crazy with making new toys even. Just keep him using the same stuff from Ninja Steel, so you only have to use the same plates when they pour the plastic in. Those are called plates. So you have to use the new plates. They have the old plates from Toei, from Bandai, Or maybe they made their own. I don't know. Maybe Bandai was nice and let them buy them. I don't know. But you have the plates that you can then just keep making the stuff. Just give it a new name. Turn it into like cute little necklace pieces and things like that for the girls to wear. Maybe the guys want to wear it too. I don't know. It's up to you. But again, like there's a way to build out of what they already own. And it's just so crazy to me that they're doing this ground up revisioning thing and they don't have to do that. So when it comes to your expanded universe idea, pursue it because it proves a point. It proves a point that there's more meat on the bone than what Hasbro is convinced is left. Okay? So I absolutely endorse you to do what I'm doing, but I also do what I'm doing and make heavy disclaimers when you realize that people are taking it too seriously. So please also, like going forward, you're probably going to see a lot of the videos with AI generated up in the corner because I can't guarantee that people aren't going to run out and write an article now and say like Disney just released footage and it's badass or whatever, you know? And then all of a sudden I have black helicopters landing in my backyard. Austin says, hey, brah, me and my best friend Mar are making our own Power Rangers project. One is called Power Rangers Project. One is called The Legend of Mason Truman, and the other is my project called Power Rangers Brand New World. Sure. Like I said, like I was telling Mr. Scary Pasta, Hasbro is not providing Ranger content right now. Now, I spent 15 years writing fan fiction, okay? I have a little clip about that. Gave up that life. I put it behind me, all right? I sound like I'm talking about alcohol, right? Like I had an alcohol problem. But yeah, I wrote fan fiction and I deleted it all. Don't try to go find it. You don't need to know what was going on in my 14-year-old brain. So for about 15 years, I wrote Power Rangers, okay? I was absolutely fascinated with the concept. You have to forgive me, a little bit of buzz in my throat there. Absolutely fascinated with the concept. And what gets me isn't necessarily the giant robots and the swords and the guns and the fights and things like that, even the music and things like that. It's the concept of just regular people, just average. They could be teenagers with attitude, or they could be full-grown ass adults that are police officers in a future where aliens are walking side by side mankind picking through the trash. It's a beautiful idea that comes from probably the truest expression of our mythological stories. If you go back as early as the Greek stories, if you want to go back to oh God, I forgot their name now. They're not the Mesopotamians, but they're further back than that, the people of Gilgamesh. It's the story of the regular man, the flesh and blood mortal man, putting life and limb on the line to defend what he loves. In a children's show to sell you action figures and plastic robot toys. Okay? When I realized it around 13 or 14 years old, it rocked me that this incredible concept of flesh and blood, bone and muscle man. Jason's not a god. Tommy's not a god as much as he might appear to be in the series. He's not a god. You saw him age. He's not a god. He'll reach a point where he can't do it anymore, like he did in the Son. I think it's the Son of the Dragon, or I have the comic. It's somewhere. It's awful, but it's somewhere. And you have that whole belief system that I will lay down my life in defense of this place, these people, and this way of life. And I will die wearing rainbow spandex. It's just when it reaches that point, you're like, okay, back to Earth now. It was fun up in the clouds, but okay, we're back to Earth now with the rainbow colored spandex. You got me. And that's one of the grounding effects of it. I guess when you get all high and gassed up on the concept, it slaps you back down to Earth when it reminds you that they're wearing spandex and fiberglass helmets. It's one of those things that even as an adult, when I watch the Super Sentai series, and of course, when I can finally sit through a full modern Power Rangers episode, it does still activate that little child part of my brain that says, this is so neat that regular people get to do this. Not a billionaire, not a super genius, not a god, not some alien from a far-flung planet that went kablooey. None of that. Just regular people, flesh and bone, going out there and putting it all on the line. And that's why I think it's a great idea to tell this story. And I hope Hasbro is able to preserve that messaging, because we need that now. We need people to look beyond themselves. And that's the core central philosophy in Power Rangers, is look beyond yourself. That was the whole point of why the original 5 were so important to Zordon, is because they were absolutely selfless in every form and facet, except for Zack's desire to get laid. That was, but a man's got needs, and I understand that one. But aside from that, everybody else, everybody was geared toward helping their fellow man, and that's what made them so unique among their fellow Angel Grove Californians. Angel Grovians? Angel Grovites? Did we ever know if they were Angel Grovians or Angel Grovites? Anyway. Sakuramita, sure. I'm going to be a while, explaining stuff, because, as I said, we got to go from, episode 0 now, you know what I mean? And so that's going to take, a hot second to zip back to how this all got started and the avalanche, I guess, of how it's going. But yeah, sure. I'll try to remember to check my notifications here. I'm mostly going to be dealing with my own images, so I probably won't be over on Twitter. But if you find me getting close to closing down the stream here, just remind me, like usual. I'll bounce over to it if I see your comment. It's one of those things, live streaming, live streaming. Right. His name was Sledge. That's right. His name was Sledge, and so Sledge in the Power Rangers Dino Charge and then Super Dino Charge, because Neo Saban just had to milk those 18 episodes, 16 episodes a season they were allowed to have from Nickelodeon. Had to milk it for all it's worth to make it seem like it was bigger than it was. But so Sledge was, a lot of people liked him because he was sort of, he was kind of a callback to Zed, where he was a bit of an angry next door neighbor villain. As opposed to conquering the galaxy, he was sort of singularly focused on getting revenge on Keeper and getting a hold of the Energems. And that was sort of his thing, Whereas I was talking about Lothar the other day, and Lothar, of course, had his own singular vision of revenge, but more globally, he wanted to dominate the universe. It was just a nice thing to be able to stomp the hamster out of existence in the process of all that. And so again, we're sort of I guess approaching this point with Sledge, where he's that return to form villain that is still affable, that is still sort of unique in his execution of being a bad guy, in that he is singularly focused. And I know a lot of people like to have gray area in their villains. They like to have, my chat froze. Sorry, guys. I can't. I'm just going to blow that up so I can read what you're saying. Maybe I won't. I don't know. It's not working over here either. Sorry, guys. But I don't know why this is all screwed up. It's really weird. Thanks, StreamYard. Having a great time. But so Sledge is a return to form to that basic, I'm bad guy and I'm not going to hear anything else about it. I'm not going to have a good side. I'm not going to be reachable. I'm not that gray area guy that got wronged and decided, to take revenge as opposed to the high road. I like that because we've had a long time of that Maleficent formula. You remember Maleficent there with Angelina Jolie. Let's see if I can. Maleficent. Yeah, the 2014 film with Angelina Jolie. Let's see if I can find. There it is. This is where she's all feministy looking. Yeah, there we go. But I'll get that up on screen for you guys so you know what I'm looking at. But yeah, so we had to explain how Maleficent was the good guy all along. Whoopsie doodles. It turns out that she did nothing wrong, and it was the ills of man that had driven her to such extremes. How terrible, how awful. And so what ended up happening was this infected Hollywood quite quickly, where every villain had to have a background. And even now, you've got like the Boom Comics Rita Repulsa Redemption. See if I can find where Rita wasn't always evil. She was a good little girl. She was a good little girl, but her daddy was obsessed with the Morphin grid energy, and he found Dark Spectre in there, and Dark Spectre was like, dude, I can make your dick bigger. All you have to do is sacrifice your daughter to me, bro. Just take these pills, okay? I know it's in your spam folder, but you gotta trust me, bro. It's the government that's filtering this. It was like the weakest excuse. I don't remember what it was, but it was like the weakest temptation of power. And Rita's dad was like, yeah, sure, whatever, have my daughter. That's neat, thanks. All I have to do is give you my daughter? Shit, dude, I thought you were going to ask me for something that mattered. You know, that was his response to that deal, that Crossroads Demon deal. I don't know what that was all about. But so what ended up happening with this whole saga was that Rita was explained as being the victim. And I'm very tired of this concept. As I said, it started with Maleficent. And I'll jump back to that one real quick so I can, square the circle and get that out of here. So in Maleficent, if you don't know, the story is that she fell in love with a man and he happened to be heir to the throne. As, a lady would often like to fantasize that she would marry a prince and become a queen that just sort of enjoys the lap of luxury and takes selfies in exotic places. Who wouldn't desire it's like a hamster wheel, really, when I try to think of a life like that, but whatever. There's some people that fantasize it. So Maleficent was all happy, having a great time, and gave herself to this man in the, ba-doom doom kind of way. You know what I'm talking about. So she wakes up the next morning with her wings ripped from her body, or cut away, rather. And so, as a metaphor for her losing her feminine purity, she loses her wings and thus becomes vengeful because at the cost of losing her wings, she was not rewarded with eternal love as was promised to her by the man, the heir to the throne. Now, of course, this led to Sleeping Beauty being born by the proper queen. And of course, Maleficent has, blah, blah, blah. I hate that kid, and so on and so forth. And what it did is it humanized Maleficent away from just being this awful lady who also turns into a green fire breathing dragon, or rather a dragon that breathes green fire. She's not green herself. And so that infected Hollywood, that whole idea of like, we got to explain the villain. And it finally found its way over to Rita, as I said. And so it was explained that she was just an innocent little goyle out there doing little goyle things. And her mother was also an innocent lady who was very kind and beautiful and beloved by everybody, everywhere, all the time, forever. And it pains me to go through this because if you remember at the end of Mystic Force, the Magic Mother, I think they went with that. Or the Empress of Good Magic. Yeah. So the Empress of Good Magic, if you don't know, was played by the actress who portrayed Rita Repulsa in Zoolander before she passed away. I'm trying to find man, who uploads these microscopic pictures to Google? I will find you and I will tickle you in a way that you don't like. Oh, go to this. Gosh, what a terrible time. So anyway, the actress who portrayed Rita Repulsa. So I believe this is the Japanese actress who portrayed her before she passed away. This would be Bandora in Zoolander, and this would be Rita in our footage before she was eventually replaced for continued footage by the American actress. And I'm very sorry her name escapes me right now. That is not a personal dig at her whatsoever. I just can't remember her name off the top of my head. And so this is where they draw their inspiration for Rita's mother in the comics. And so they contextualize this scene at the end of Mystic Force and Magi Ranger, which is where Mystic Force's footage came from. They contextualize this as being Rita's mother. and she is the good witch, if you will. And so in Magi Ranger, this is Magi Mother. I think this is who this is, the Supreme Empress of Magic. And I think in Power Rangers, this is the Magic Mother or the Empress of Magic, something like that. Again, you'll have to correct me in the comments and chat, however you're going to come about it. But I'm not trying to screw it up on purpose. And so now, of course, like I said, you come back over here to the comics, and who's that over here on the top right? Ah, there it is, the Magic Mother. Ta-da! And who's below her? That's right, Evil Rita, because she was corrupted by her power-hungry daddy, who looked into the abyss, and the abyss looked back into him. Oh no! Oh no, guys! Oh no! And of course, so now Rita was forced into being evil. And now they did the same damn thing to Zed. I don't know. I didn't know about this. I'm not following Prime. I'm not following the comics because, again, it's such a headache. It's such an absolute headache. But apparently, Lord Zed was not always Lord Zed, or rather, he was not always like muscle and bone exposed. It was a terrible accident that Zordon caused in some other way or another. And this is what Zed used. I believe this is what Zed used to look like. Maybe he had a goatee. He was an Eltaran, basically, because for some reason we've decided the Eltarans are blue, and Eltarian, I guess, because that's what we do now with them. They're Eltarians as opposed to Eltaran, whatever. But yeah, he apparently was. Oh no, there he is. I got it. My bad. Of course, it's microscopic. I'm gonna find people. Gosh. So I believe Zed's the one with the goatee, and so he was an Eltarian, if you will, Eltarian. And so in the Boom comics, he was a good guy. And through some fault of Zordon's, he ends up having the flesh rendered from him. Like I said, I don't follow the comics. I'm talking about this as like reading an article on it, and I think like reading some posts about it. Because again, like the Boom comics ever since Shattered Grid have just been on an absolute nosedive. It's so agenda driven. You can't get 5 pages through it without somebody trying to preach to you about modern day politics. It's disgusting. I'm so tired of all of that. And this just peaks for me when you start turning the villains into the good guys and the good guys into villains, because it's that threadbare now. Apparently, people wearing spandex, piloting giant robots, defending the earth from, extraterrestrial or magical threats, wherever they come from, robot threats, whatever. Apparently, this is boring. That's just boring. We need to make sure that like there's palace intrigue here, and that Zordon is actually not really the good guy that we were always told he was, and that his sacrifice was kind of like self-centered too, because he caused all of this. So really, all he's doing is clearing his conscience. It's like, drives me nuts, man. It drives me nuts. What's wrong with the mustache twisting, tie your girlfriend to the railroad tracks bad guy? What is wrong with that? When did that become like, there's just an asshole who wants to be evil? That's his motivation. I'm going to do bad things. It amuses me to do bad things, so I will do them. That's the bad guy's motivation. The end. Why does it have to be deeper than that? I don't understand why we have to make 3-dimensional characters out of our villains when all we're going to do is punch him in the face. That's the thing is Zed always loses here. He's not going to come out on the other side being redeemed. He's always going to get punched in the face. So what is the point of this? You're just making people feel like, oh, that's rough that he was defeated after trying to enslave the entire earth and rob us all of our individuality. Poor guy. He got punched in the face. Drives me nuts. Drives me absolutely nuts. Is the chat a mess? Is it backwards or something? I don't really know. It's upside down and inside out, that's for sure. But we'll have to wait and find out what ends up happening with the chat. Right now, we're just going to go through what's been going on. So back to the graphic we opened this with, and I have lost that graphic. You got to love these live broadcasts where I don't remember where I've stash the pictures. So, from the top, okay? What happened is if you don't know, I get very bored of the Mighty Morphin story. I'm very tired of the concept of 5 teenagers with attitude, all right? So I set out to make that a bit different this time. And so that's why you see the team as they're constructed this way, okay? Now, these are still teenagers that you're looking at right here. They're still attitudinous, if you will. They're still packed full of attitude. And again, we're not reinventing the wheel with what a Power Ranger is. It's still kept very simple that these are defenders of good. You can make that as ambiguous as you like. I'm not going to tell you exactly the barriers of good and evil in this day and age. What I'm going to tell you is they are not going to let the world be enslaved by Rita and Zed and their gang. All right, that's their morality in this contest. Okay, it's really not much more to it than that. So these teenagers with attitude, if you will, are gathered together by the viewing globe in my setting. Okay, now the viewing globe is not just like a glowy globe on top of a pedestal in my setting. It is, if you remember the sphere in the sphere, the golden sphere in the sphere. We'll go over here to Google, give you guys like a proper visual. So, the sphere movie. No, there it is. Hopefully it's not a microscopic picture. Thank you. Thank you guys for not doing that. I really appreciate it when they don't make it a microscopic picture. Nobody likes those. What is this, a thumbnail for ants? You know? So way back in the day, and I think it was like the early 2000s, they did a movie about the sphere. And this was like this, they found this spaceship at the bottom of the ocean. It had been there for thousands of years. Ta-da-da. It was a time traveling one. And these far flung Americans went out to the edge of the universe and found what they thought was God, built a machine to bring God back to Earth, and then had a whoopsie cadoodles on the way and crash landed several thousand years in the past. So, in the sphere reflects what your like innermost intense thoughts are. And for the crew that were exposed to it, it showed them their worst fears, because again, humans are first fearful of what they do not know. And that is the whole point of the story, is when you approach the sphere, your worst fears are realized, not because the sphere is built to do that, but because that is your most intense feeling. All right. So the viewing globe functions very similar to this, is that when you approach it and ask it a question, it is not going to answer the question you have asked it with your mouth. It is going to answer the question you have asked with your soul. And that's why these kids are chosen, is because out of all the Californians and soldiers and great fighters in the world, these 5, and these 5 alone, possess a unique capacity for good. Like I told you, I'm not going to tell you what good is, because again, everybody's got their own opinion about what's right and what's wrong, but the basics are there. No murder, don't litter, make sure you don't slap kids around, that kind of thing. Okay, very basic kind of rules. It's not that everybody else goes around beating their kids and smoking while they're pregnant. That's not the case. But in this setting, these kids are chosen because they have an extraordinary sense of right and wrong. Okay, and that is why they are chosen for this. It's not because they are attitudinous and want to be like rebels, and that's why Zordon chooses them, is because they dress really cool and they don't follow the rules. It's not the case. But this team is assembled together because they have a very developed sense of right and wrong. So that is sort of where the crux of this comes to be. Now, what ends up freeing Rita are the now I've lost it. You have to excuse me. I have like a crap ton of these so things open here. So just to be clear on who we're talking about, it's these kids right here in this little video here. These are our 5 heroes. Now, they're, of course, at the Vitamin Vibes juice bar. And that's kind of what I've decided is they hang out at an actual juice bar because that's I guess a thing, and seems like a trendy place for people to hang out after school. So, and I'm not sharing it. Thanks, that's great. There we go. Cool. Now you can see what I'm talking about because live broadcasts are like that. So as you can see, teenagers with attitude just kind of hanging out, doing what they do. And for what I'm trying to aim for is that, like I said before, teenagers with attitude, kind of boring, kind of dull, if you will. Uh, what my twist is on this is because they are without Zordon, they're very stuck on a regiment. You'll see my editing skills here with Rita's reveal, okay? Because like I cut out the the really rough explosion part here. That's oh, it's so bad. Oh, it's so bad. But you'll notice from the original intro, I cut that out. So either way, so what happens is that these kids are chosen because they are such a contrast to Rita that she can't infect them. Her magic can't be used to turn them into slaves for her. This is something that I've added to the like power set of Vexala, the villainess that shows up, and I'll explain her in a little bit. This is one of Rita's unique abilities is that she's able to turn people into her subordinates. And that's how she began to rise to power so quickly in this setting. And why she was such a threat to Zordon is that Zordon, like the teenagers, possesses this extreme sense of right and wrong, which makes him immune to Rita's temptations. If you remember in the MCU, I'm kind of borrowing this concept from the Scarlet Witch. If you remember in the MCU, she would whisper in the ears of characters and terrible things would happen. They would react in such a way or behave as though they were brainwashed, that sort of thing. Um, that's where I'm getting this power for Rita, and that's what Vexala ends up ultimately absorbing into her body, and how she's able to bring Zed and Goldar under her control rather than convincing them to join her after she just wiped out Zed's wife and Goldar's queen. So that's where this is going, is that because Rita has this innate ability to switch people to her side, that's her like special gimmick power. Beyond being a space witch that can do all of this, her unique subset ability that separates her from Zed and Vexala and other characters and her father, Master Vile, is that she has this ability to switch people to her side. And so when you see this purple energy, know that that is the manifestation of Rita's power. Okay. Vexala's is a different color, and you're going to get to see that later on when she's, in her final battle during the Save the Hollow Earth story. So now you know how Rita became, why she was a threat and why she was sealed away. In this scene, you have the Niseda spacemen who are going into the moon prison that I showed you in the opening to this, in the original opening. I bring that up here. Gotta get the right screen up. So many of them open right now. You have to forgive me. So many screens open at the moment. And so, like right here they are outside of the lunar prison. And so rather than turning this into Bandora's palace that's just hanging out on the moon, I decided that Zordon built this prison, this powerful place, and then like caved in portions of it so it was inaccessible through only one route. One way in, one way out. Same way. And so that way, if Rita ever escaped, there was only one way she could get out of that place, and he at least had a chance to find her before she disappeared from that place. And then you notice the electricity up at the top, that's generating a field that contains her. And of course, inside, as you see, is where that purple energy is that is radiating out of the windows. And then, ta-da, here it is. Now, I added the gothic aesthetic to this because I thought it made everything look more spooky. And I remember in Power Rangers that like she had candles and it was on the moon. And I remember as a little kid when I was watching Mighty Morphin in syndication, I was only 3 years old when Mighty Morphin originally aired. So I never saw a single like new episode of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers in my life. It was always like syndication. So when I was watching as a little kid, I was perplexed as to how like candles worked out there. And because I was one of those kids that was aware of space pretty early. And so, just it bothered me. And then I was thinking like now, I was like, that's kind of fun. Candles on the moon. Why not? And these guys are wearing spacesuits and she's not. It just kind of illustrates the difference in power and how otherworldly this story is. And I thought that would be a nice way to like illustrate the difference in like you're leaving the normal now. You're departing from what you know. You're preparing to enter the Power Ranger zone. So, oh, hello, amazing genius. Welcome aboard. Like I said, I realized as I was loring my brains out this morning that people don't know, you know, how all this came to be. So I'm posting stuff over on the tab, as you've seen, and on the post tab, and I'm realizing that people are coming across and they're like, wait, what's this? I don't understand what I'm looking at. So kind of got to bridge that gap now. So I'm starting from zero here and sort of explaining forward what went on. Now, you saw in the intro that Vexala was sporting that huge energy burst there. Okay, again, as I said, was purple. Was purple. And so this is her merging with Rita. And I wanted to kind of reflect what went on with Cell when Cell merged with Android 18. You remember that scene. So, sorry, I needed a drink. And I wanted to like bring out that scene where she was, where she is rather like having this explosion of energy around her body and it's like radiating out of her eyes and all that crazy stuff. Because again, this is Rita Repulsa that she's absorbing. This is the space witch that battled Zordon across the universe and was finally brought to bear on the moon, orbiting a, nearly lifeless world populated by terrible lizards at the time. So, that's a big deal, and that's why I wanted that power to like look like it was really, really important to Vexala. And that's Vexala's powers. Her gimmick is that she absorbs others into her form, creating a more powerful being. And over the years in the far-flung future, around Time Force's time, era, year 3000 plus, somewhere around there, she originates from there and is, again, has compiled power and is a threat there in the same way that Rita was. Rita could convert people to join her. Vexala just merges people into a more superior fighter. And so this is why she's gone on a campaign of absorbing Rita. And then, later on, I'll explain, as in Season X2, she absorbs Master Vile. And just like Cell, it changes her state of being. So, like I showed you guys before here in the preview pieces, this character in the background here that has the staff with the red glowing gem inside of it, that's Vexala's merged form with Rita. You can see Rita's stuff poking through there, the teal colors, the orange, and of course the gray hair that's in there. And so the staff, of course, has been mutated and twisted. And so I decided in that way too that Zed should have a visual upgrade in all of this. And so this is where you see him over there on the right side. Now I added like bone shoulder pads to him and a more bone expressive sort of appearance to kind of drive more of that primordial evil look as opposed to like that heavy metal album cover bad guy that he had in the 90s. I'm not mocking anybody that likes that. I'm just like drawing a line in the sand saying this is where the difference is between what existed before and what I have created now. And I thought that the bone manifesting more than the chrome would be a nice way of making him still look threatening, but also diverting into something that is unique in the expression of this character. Because I always thought Zed felt a bit naked. He's kind of like walking around in a big chrome thong. I think we can even see his butt cheeks in the original suit there. He doesn't have chrome undies on the back. He has just kind of ends in a belt. So he's wearing a G-string, with a chrome banana hammock. And I don't know, it just kind of felt like there was a few pieces missing, maybe make it look a bit more like it was armor as opposed to something else. And so that's why I added the bone attachments here and whatnot. And then of course, as you can see down on the bottom right, I upgraded Goldar. Now, when I say upgraded, I wanted to bring forth more of the flying monkey look that the character had in the Power Rangers movie, if you remember. And so, of course, as you can see, he has more pronounced fangs, the canine fangs, top and bottom. He has a much more flattened nose, as you can see, like a much more flattened nose. And the horns that were on the front of his helmet are much more pronounced than they were before. The wings didn't change too much. I think that the absence of the blue gems at the top are kind of a nice touch. I'm not so sure that they were bad before, but it just kind of breaks this design from its inspiration. And of course, he's got a bit more blue going on because I don't think the blue was serviced enough in the original costume. So, and of course, our Rangers are in the foreground here. And this isn't the only image I've got. I just want to explain this one because it kind of, everything's piled together in nice dramatic fashion. And of course, we have our Rangers here, and I can zoom in on them. And as you can see, I've changed the Ranger suits dramatically in the case of the Red Ranger and not so dramatically in the case of the Green Ranger. Now, a lot of people have asked why the Green Ranger is designed so differently from the main five. Because again, like they're all wearing the same style armor that the Red Ranger is here. That's not anything different. Now, Green is different, though, decidedly. He's not wearing the same style of armor. He doesn't have as much expression of the lighting effects as, of course, the Red Ranger does here. And his belt is different. Now, this is because I decided that I didn't want to strip the Mighty Morphin suits out of the universe. Instead, I wanted to contextualize just what is going on with those suits. And so when Billy and Jason and the others are brought into the power chamber, Dulcia is the leader. Now, she doesn't have the magical powers that Zordon does. So she's working off of the tech from 10,000 years ago. Okay, so these suits, right, the Green Ranger suit, the power coins, that was all forged 10,000 years ago during the original war for Eltar, when Rita was first sieging that. And that's, of course, the Order of Meridian are who were originally wearing those colors. Right now, you remember the Order of Meridian, it gets kind of tossed around in the Zordon era, but that was basically the gang that Zordon put together. That was Dulcia's, Ninjor, Auric. I believe that Trey, or one of Trey's ancestors, was part of it. Basically, everybody that showed up that had really cool things to say about Zordon was part of the Order of Meridian. It was kind of like the Knights Templar, I guess, but for like space, maybe. I'm not sure. The Avengers maybe might be a better comparison for how that was constructed. But yeah, the Order of Meridian was the impetus for where these suits come from. Zordon created all of this. He himself, of course, was the Red Ranger in that setting. I might have that graphic hanging around here. I might. I don't know. There's no guarantee. Let's see. Oh, I'll put up Dulcia while I'm looking for Zordon battling Rita. Let's see. Oh, nope, there it is. So as you can see, Dulcia looks decidedly different. In my vision of Dulcia, even as adult, I recognize her as being like a Celtic warrior out in the middle of the jungle. I know it's absurd, but it's Power Rangers, and the leader of the original team is a floating head in a tube. Is it that absurd to assume that an Irish woman ended up in the jungle, out in space, like space jungle? Is it that absurd? But anyway, so that's why Dulcia looks this way, as I decided to crank up that Celtic warrioress thing all the way to the peak. Now, you'll notice that she is carrying a glowing green spear, and that is much different than the rounded ball whistling poles that she used to have. And that's because that is the green Zeo crystal up there. That's right. You mess with Dulcia, you're going to get blasted and stabbed with the Zeo crystal, the green Zeo crystal. But I found that graphic. And so as you can see here, the original suits were designed for the war 10,000 years ago. Okay. So here's Zordon fighting Rita. And again, like, this is just a representation of it. Obviously, it's not a full-blown battle. It's just them like, blah, my power versus your power, that kind of thing. And so that's how this originally cropped up, is 10,000 years ago, these suits were originally created, and they haven't been changed since. When Zordon was sealed behind the time barrier, the Morpher wasn't with him. he had, of course, his power down after defeating Rita. And the side effect of that war was him being stuck behind that time barrier for 10,000 years. Of course, plus, because he'll be coming through. And so the green power coin, which was forged for that time, right? That is 10,000 years old. The power coin that the Red Ranger is wearing here looks decidedly different, as you can see. Now that's because Billy reforged them in my setting. He reforged them with the Dino Gems, and that's what made them so different, and why the suits are so different is because Billy couldn't improve upon Zordon's design. It's sort of like when you're like you're dealing with an antique and you're trying to restore it. You can't really like rebuild the antique and have it be an antique still, because you don't have those building skills, you don't have those techniques anymore. There's no like there's no guy that goes around like cutting those stones, if you will. And so when Billy went through the process of reforging these without Ninja around to help, he ended up creating these new power coins and these new morphers. So as you can see, these have the Dino Gems in them. Now, Tommy's was not part of this. It's just part of a display that I created for, just demonstration purposes. So just ignore the white one for right now, if you will. So as you can see right here, these are the Dino Gems that were forged into these new power coins and put in these new morphers. So you'll notice that these morphers look really different, a lot different, in fact. And you'll see that there's some type of teeny tiny little writing on the, see if I can find the power coins here to show you a closer up picture. Here we go. There's the power coins with a closer up picture for you guys. So as you can see, the power coins have like Eltaran writing. Now, for those of you who are Star Wars fans, you're going to recognize that as like Star Wars writing, because there's no Eltaran writing. Sorry. So this is a placeholder, and I'm just owning up to that now in case anybody who's a hardcore Star Wars fan comes through and is like, hey, wait, that's Jedi record keeping text. So yeah, you got me. But it looked space language-y, which it's supposed to, so I applied it to the coins. Here we are. And so as you can see, the power coins have been reforged with Dino Gems in them, which is compounding their power and make them strong enough. As I have pointed out before multiple times with what I've done here, the timeline's different. Things have changed. The scales are much higher than they ever have been. The stakes are much higher than they ever have been. And that's what leads to the suits having the armor. Now, when humans go to war, our human thinking is that we need to protect more vital signs, more of our vital areas. When aliens who have super magic powers go to war, they tend not to worry about having their hearts and guts and, general, vital organs protected from blunt force trauma, piercing trauma, that sort of thing. So this was Billy's human psychology coming through with this. Is we need armor to protect ourselves because we're going into war. And so that's why he's built on top of this, the chest armor, the gauntlet armor, the knee armor, and of course the boots that are armored. The collars just kind of looked cool. So whatever. The lights, however, as a lot of people have asked me about, the lights are the grid energy. This is where I'm like separating Power Rangers from the Super Sentai as I'm going through and rebuilding these suits. You saw some of the Zeo stuff in the opening. We'll get to that. It's probably not going to be today, but in a future lore stream, that's what I'm calling these, lore stream, I will definitely explain what's going on with Zeo. But for now, when you see these suits that have these pronounced white lines in the middle of the suit themselves that, serve to illuminate the limbs and serve to illuminate the helmet, that's me solving the low light filming environments. Okay. That's the truth behind why that design is there. So if you want to zoom back out and go to like CW shows, these CW shows, they typically have like a kind of a dimly lit space where the heroes will talk in and things like that because it adds drama. Like you go back, you look at like the Legends of Tomorrow. They had a well-lit meeting space where the characters would have like that spin around conversation scene and stuff like that. I'm talking about Legends of Tomorrow because it's probably the most recent CW superhero series, I think. So that's all. That's the only reason why I'm doing that. It's not because it's great. And so, but the rest of the time, the characters are usually in low light environments, like sneaking around or at nighttime, or they are in indoor lighting environments where like there's not a lot of like powerful overhead lighting. And so when you drag a Power Ranger into that environment, it's difficult to tell who is talking. You don't have the eyes moving to work with because, of course, the eyes create the contrast in the light. And of course, you don't have the mouth moving to see the teeth blinking in and out as someone's talking in the dark. Even in these mid-light environments, they're kind of like, orange lit fire, like an interior of a castle that's torch lit where you can still see people's skin and things like that. The helmet does not solve any of that problem. It makes it so much worse because you just see the helmet shaking up and down if you're lucky in that low light. And so that's what I did by putting a light on the back of the helmet so you don't have some distracting light beam waggling up and down in front of you when you're trying to watch this or you're trying to act in that environment. Rather, it's on the back of the helmet and comes around just to the side of the crest. So whenever these people are talking, the light radiating off the back of that helmet is going to show you who's talking. When they lift their arms to accentuate what they're saying, which is what they do in Power Rangers, so you know who's talking, you end up having the lights in the forearms crossing over the light in the chest. And as the light's moving back and forth in the chest, you know who's talking in this environment. Meanwhile, it also looks pretty badass to have these lights running on these things because it makes it look like it's like overwhelmed with power. There's so much power. It's radiating out. That and I like the glowing diamond effect. There were a few people that were like, oh, that's kind of like Iron Man. It's like, yeah, I suppose so. But there again, I mean, does Iron Man own glowy chest thing? That's it? That's the only character that can have glowy chest thing? I think that's kind of unfair. I think glowy chest thing is kind of important when you're doing like, especially tech heroes, Even Ultraman has a glowy chest thing. So I don't know. But that's why these suits look different is that the Green Ranger is powered by a power coin that is 10,000 years old, unchanged from that condition. And the Red Ranger here is powered by a coin that has been freshly reforged with the Dino gems and a new design aesthetic applied to it. And so that's why he has the Dino Thunder expressions on the side of his suit. There were people asking me why that was the case. So there it is. So, Amazing Genius says you just put the image where it says upload image and then add a description of what the suit is like, and then press generate. Oh, I think you're responding to Sakura Mita. My bad. Yeah, of course, like the Ranger suits, however you want to express them. I'm just, I like the AI because it generates a live action suit. And, I'm always like impressed with it when it manages to copy the lens depth of a live action television show. If you don't know, cameras who do movies like this Marvel universe, they have a much greater lens depth. And what that means is that the environment that it's absorbing has a deeper sense of spatial awareness to it. So when you're looking at the picture, the far wall doesn't feel so flat. It feels sort of like real life where it's a bit like more clear, but also blurred out the way that your eye behaves. Whereas with like a live action television show camera, the lens depth is not so great. So when you're looking at that back wall, it's pretty flat. The lighting is pretty flat on it. You can see a lot of the detail in it that you wouldn't be able to see with your naked eye. And so it throws off the effect of having like this, MCU style, very like real to life expression. And it's one of the things I appreciate about generating this stuff is that it occasionally it will kick out something that looks like wonderfully, straight from the television show. I might have an example of it just hanging around here that turned my head here a while ago. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah. So this one here, I was generating stuff for just testing out the AI and what it can do. And I have a like the Star Strikers, as you saw over on my Cider Hype channel. The Star Strikers are the Gokaiger adaptation, and their leader is Ramona Black Eagle, and she is a space pirate, kind of forced into it because of what happened to her. But it's not important to what this is, but just kind of explaining who this character is. As you can see, this looks like it's a screenshot from a television show, from the Power Rangers television show. Like, it blows my mind just how it captured that shallow lens depth that your eyeball just kind of like, okay, so this is not like one of those cinematic cameras, and the lighting, of course, is a bit more flat. It's it's like, even now, after all the other stuff I've seen since generating this, it still is probably like the most pristine, perfect. This could be a screenshot from the television show scene. It blows my mind just how um I don't know, just how like real to life this scene is right here. So that's all. That's why I don't like invest in trying to draw this stuff and manifest it that way, is that the AI is able to, create something that looks real. So it's not that your drawings are inferior to that. It's just my aesthetic. That's all. That's all I care about. So, Mr. Scary Pasta says, I kind of wish Dulcia existed in the main canon. Too bad she's restricted to the universe of the 95 movie. And that's just it. That's why I brought her through, is that as much as I appreciate Ninjor, Dulcia just has a far more attractive story. And of course, she's a pretty lady. So, I mean, like, who wouldn't want to have, your mentor lady uh, with all this going on, you know? Who wouldn't want to have this mentor lady, telling you what's up, what's good, what's not? And that's the big difference with Dulcia versus Zordon in this setting, is that Dulcia runs the Power Rangers like the military. That was her role in the Order of Meridian, is that she was basically the secretary of war, if you will. That was her job, was to be the strategist, the planner, where are our logistics? How do we combat this? She was not the Green Ranger. That was not, I kept the green because of her like movie costume and because of the Celtic thing. Has nothing to do with her being whatever color you'd like to assign to her. But she was not the Green Ranger. So that's why. And so she runs this new team very militaristically. A lot of stiff upper lip attitude, not a lot of room for, can I help you with your homework? Dulcia is very alien to Earth, despite being here for 10,000 years. She never integrated, never married a human, never none of that. Just stayed with the power chamber and in the immediate area, training, and that was it. Attending to things on and off the world, but never integrating into society. Mostly, I think that would be like stemming out of her just utter disgust for how dishonorable, normal, regular human life is. Not that we're all criminals running around, but for Dulcia, as she was presented in the movie, she seemed very regimented. And so regular life on Earth would be very insulting to that personality, in my opinion. So that's why she stayed like a lonely cat lady, pent up in the power chamber with Alpha 5 for 10,000 years. So, but that, again, like, that's my setting. That's not the setting that anybody else has to conform to. That's how I'm integrating her. So, oh, you've got some stuff over on Twitter. Okay. So the thing that happened with this is that the arrival of Zordon was very important to the Rangers, as I was just setting up. So what ends up happening is that Zordon suddenly returns. There's no catalyst event. There's no lightning hitting the power chamber. There's none of that. And I'm referring to the power chamber because it is underground. This is not the command center, because the command center just kind of blows my mind that like no authority on Earth ever like found that place and decided to go up and like knock on the door like, hey man, this place precedes the city we built here. We didn't find you till Landsat in the 70s. What's going on? This seems kind of primordial, kind of alien. Is this where aliens hang out? And like nobody in California thought to go to the top of that mountain after all the planes fly over, the satellite scans, and none of that. It just, no. I couldn't like make it work in my mind that there was this above ground alien base, even in any form it could take. So that's why that's the power chamber. It's underground. And so when Zordon returns, it's a really random event for them. And so he just pops up in the tube. It's that simple. And this happens when Kim is alone in the power chamber, and she calls Jason back, and they are stunned to finally meet him. So, and I think I have that video up just on one of my numerous tabs right now. Okay, there we go. There, and so I have a video of him introducing himself. Even it's not spectacular, don't worry, but here you go. We'll just watch that.
I am Zordon of Eltar. 10,000 years ago, I was locked behind a temporal barrier after my narrow victory against the space witch, Rita Repulsa. My body is submerged in raw tachyons that quell the ravages of my chronal sickness, a result of spending so many centuries frozen in time. For now, I cannot walk among you. But you, chosen by the viewing globe for your righteous soul, tell me more about you.
So that's why Zordon is in the tube. It's not because he's stuck in an interdimensional state. It's because he cannot be free of the tachyon submersion therapy yet. It may take a while. It may never happen. I haven't decided if he comes loose in like a movie or whatever, but by the end of Save the Hollow Earth, he's not out of the tube. What I did that for was because having him communicate through a dimensional barrier really interfered with the way that I wanted to tell the story, because it made Zordon into an interdimensional character, and what I'm trying to do is create a separate timeline. So that would mean this Zordon would be aware of other Zordons, and they would be like, hey man, your shit's not the same as our shit. That's bad. Can we help you with your shit? Like we saw in the Shattered Grid story where Draken was going around killing the variant, the other multiversal Zordons. And so I just kind of wanted to brush that out of the way immediately. Just like, nope. There's no backup. We're not playing that game. That's not how this goes. They don't talk to each other. Everybody's separate. They're all walled off. So Zordon is stuck in that tachyon submersion therapy, and that is why he's expressed as a face, because he's communicating, telepathically using magic to express himself that way. Meanwhile, there is just a dude floating inside of that tube. So that's that. It's just a dude in there. That's when, for whatever reason, he loses consciousness or, whatever. The head disappears and it's just a dude in the tube. I like that better because it feels more like, the ravages of this conflict against Rita are still plaguing him 10,000 years later. And so that really illustrates the kind of threat that you're dealing with. A lot of the thing that happened with Mighty Morphin is that it just kind of deflated the threat of Rita over the time until she was just sort of this nagging wife that annoyed Zed all the time. And while that's funny, it just sort of watered what the whole purpose of Mighty Morphin was down. And so I wanted to make sure that Zordon did not have an easy time tangling with her. Zordon did not come out the other side of that even on 2 feet. He was literally sucked into a time barrier where he was ravaged for 10,000 years. Like his body was ravaged by the effects of that for 10,000 years. And as a result, he cannot exist in the flow of regular time because his cells, what makes up his body, are so scattered from past, present, future. They can't unite into a single body unless they're compressed inside of this tachyon submersion therapy. So that felt like it meant something. Like Rita was really a threat to deal with. And that's why Vexala, having absorbed her, is such a greater threat now, with that power compounded into another. So we do have Amazing Genius saying, I am thinking of going for an armored design. Well, I think that this helps break Power Rangers apart from Super Sentai. Kamen Rider never took off here, thanks mostly because to mostly, the Masked Rider fiasco in the 90s. Kamen Rider Dragon Knight did its best. I think really the problem is that when it comes to these productions, they can't afford people who can both do these amazing stunts and act very, very well. And so the performances in some characters are done extremely well, and then to some characters, they were not done very well at all. And so that kind of deflated its appeal beyond where it initially started. It didn't help that the story was also a bit scattered. So I think it would be a good idea to, consider on just the basic design level of what you want a Power Ranger to be, especially in this era where Hasbro's trying to redefine the visual of a Power Ranger in order to break it off from Super Sentai. That the Power Rangers should have armor. And I think the armor is what really breaks off the, this is Super Sentai, but with a different name and soundtrack, you know. The armor is also something that kind of leans into what I said about the American approach to going to war is we just armor ourselves up. It's not that any other culture does. It's just that America's kind of got that motif about us that, military, high tech, cheeseburgers, fast cars, spray tan, that's kind of the thing. So when it comes to Power Rangers, which is, of course, the American adaptation, the American name for American tokusatsu, the most popular one, armor is definitely a good idea to integrate into that. So that's why I did it, is that it just breaks apart like what a Power Ranger is, and as opposed to what a Super Sentai hero is. Not that anyone is lesser or greater. It's just when you're looking at them now, you can be like, oh, that's Power Rangers. That's Super Sentai. I can clearly tell these spandex wearing, helmet wearing guys apart now. That's all. Just to give the overall aesthetic something different. So again, like I said, I think it's a good idea. I am. Ninjor again is another character that I'm trying to keep out on the edge because he's one of those ones that can just answer all the problems immediately. And it's not that that's a bad thing. It's that he went into hiding for a reason. And so having him come out in the middle of all these threats is sort of defeating the purpose. Ninjor is the way that I interpreted him through the years is less of a fighter and more of a nuclear bomb. The guy is really handy with beating the piss out of people. Don't get me wrong, but Ninjor is more important as a weaponsmith. And if you get a hold of him and do some flippity wicket, evil spell on him and turn him into your subordinate, like what Rita was doing, right? That's why he erased his memory of where he buried the coin and put Titanus and the Dragon Zord in charge of protecting it in my setting. He is in seclusion. So there's not going to be anything that pulls him out of that. Not going to be anything that pulls him out of it. Rather, the Rangers are going to find him. And this is why the Hollow Earth is one of the settings that really stood out to me, was that it answered a lot of questions like, where is Scorpina? Where are the Thunder Zords? How do we introduce the Thunder Zords? So on and so forth. And among those was, where did Ninjor go? How did he hide? Where would you hide? In all of the universe, where could you hide where you could be helpful to Zordon whenever he decided to come back? Of course, the Hollow Earth. It just answered a lot of questions when I decided that, oh yeah, we'll just put the Hollow Earth. So that way everybody's near Zordon, but also like completely separate and able to have their own adventures that don't affect the surface world and are thus a completely uncharted territory for everybody. So yeah, you'll see Ninjor show up and he'll, be doing Ninjor stuff as one would expect him to do. Again, it's one of those things where the pacing of this, I can't go as fast as I would like to go because ultimately the creative process on this is still like evolving. As I said, I've had to compensate some things through here in order to make sense of how all of this is broken down, because I'm not looking at this through the lens of like, how can I make this like impress people visually? Like, how can I fulfill what I want out of the entire Power Rangers reboot, refit thing that I'm doing here? And so it became more about how can I follow the formula of what's happening with these new Power Rangers series, and also how do I follow the formula while progressing this to 8 to 14-year-olds? And that's kind of like what happens here with Lord Vile when he comes through. Excuse me, Master Vile. I always get those confused. Sorry. You brought up Ninjor, so I figured I'd jump into it here. So Master Vile is Master Vile. Um, there's no real huge twist about him. He's still Rita's father. He's still spooky. He's still very powerful. And of course, here is the purple manifestation because Rita worked her magic on him. You see, you got to remember, she's evil in my setting. She's not some tortured little girl that her father did, well, of course he's a villain, so of course he did evil things, but he didn't like sacrifice her to the Dark Spectre. That wasn't part of my canon. In my canon, they're just all evil. Her and Rito and Master Vile are all just evil guys. That's it. That's all there is to it. But in order to gain power, she took control of her father's mind. Now, I was going to make the opening where he's like, "Where's my daughter?" I was going to have him say, like, "Where's my daughter? She hasn't called in weeks." Because if you remember, Master Vile was always like the doting father that loved his daughter very much and was very suspicious of Zed and didn't like Zed. The usual sitcom father-in-law attitude, sort of. And I did like that, and I know that it's out of place in this setting, so I left it out. Okay. Like I said, this isn't wish fulfillment for me. This is me trying to legitimize the Power Rangers audience for, the 8 to 14-year-old market, trying to make it interesting to kids who watch Dragon Ball Super, who are watching the multiple Ben 10 reboots, refits, reimaginings, the Owl House, those kinds of shows that are out there that have higher stakes, have villains that have more I guess, serious attitudes about executing their will as opposed to weekly monster battles, that sort of thing. And it's not that I want to steal away from Power Rangers its appeal to children, like the little 5 to 8-year-old market that it was built on. It's that market is no longer allowed to engage with Power Rangers anymore. If you don't know, since 2020, the 5 to 8-year-old market is pretty much dominated by Paw Patrol and Blazing the Monster Machines. That's pretty much like the vibe. You're not meant to get out beyond these people that have these characters rather that have adventures where nobody gets hurt per se. There's no broken bones, there's no bruises, there's no blood. They can be imperiled, certainly, like they're dangling from a cliffside or they're, in a car accident and they need immediate help, but they're not like, shown as having a limb severed, that sort of thing. So inversely, of course, with Blazing the Monster Machines, a great deal of their adventures are just simply a character is misunderstood. And once their intention is made clear and everyone is able to process what that intention was, the conflict is resolved. So Blazing the Monster Machines does not tread into violence in really any form other than like he wins and the kids lose and the other trucks lose, I guess, and they crash, but they don't crash or they like explode or whatever. They just end up in like mud or upside down or something. It's again, it's meant for 5 to 8-year-olds. But guess what happens in Power Rangers? A lot of punching, a lot of kicking, a lot of throwing and tossing of dudes, a lot of explosions. And every episode in the last few minutes every episode ends, or, one of the final acts, is with a monster dying. Death. Now, you don't care about that monster. That monster's had like a total of 7 minutes of screen time this episode, and you're likely never going to see him again unless there's some other monster that can resurrect that monster. And even then, that resurrected monster is going to matter even less now. So again, but it's still the concept of death that's sandwiched in between, we're a bunch of rescue pups, and we're going to go save somebody trapped in a tree. And then you got Power Rangers in the middle there that's like, death is the resolution to conflict. And then on the other side, Blazing the Monster Machines is like, if we just talk it out, we'll find out that we're not that different. You can't have it. You can't have Power Rangers in the middle of that. I can't blame Hasbro for not knowing what to do with the franchise because they've trapped themselves in that 5 to 8-year-old market. I mean, look at what Playmates is doing. They're drowning in trying to make this appeal to younger kids, and they just don't care. They just don't care. And it's not that they're like evil or stupid or whatever. It's that the kids, they don't have anything new. They don't have anything new. All the stuff that's out there, the majority of it, 90% of it anyway, is reboot stuff, derivative stuff, spin-offs. And so that's why this is important. There's this reboot is that I'm trying to rebuild everything as sort of a new story. So that way we're not trying to rehash the original events of what happened in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. We're taking elements from all of that and we are building out a new lore, which incorporates, I wouldn't say like modern politics or modern agendas or anything like that, but incorporates an 8 to 14-year-old attitude of storytelling, kind of based out of Dragon Ball Z, Buffy, that sort of thing, where the stakes are higher, the characters have more interpersonal connection as opposed to, the last 5 minutes, they have a moral of the story conversation, that sort of thing. There is a longer continuing thread. The reason why I took 3 seasons to do this, like I've built 3 seasons out on this, is because I do want it to last 5 years. I think that's a safe timeline for this because The Flash kind of went into like, I think 6 or 7 years and it really fell off after the 5th year. And it's sort of like that old rule that a superhero can only do so many things before they're just doing it again, but with different colors. And so with this Mighty Morphin story, I figured that if I'm going to do the 3rd season with the Hollow Earth, it should be like, that's it. It should be like, this is why it happens. But the big problem that's always been with Power Rangers is unifying the themes that are in the show. So, like I've talked about before in these streams, I'm just trying to bring up a picture of like all the Power Rangers together doing the Power Ranger thing together. Yeah, there we go. So as you can see, the Power Rangers have a very difficult time using the Sentai footage to translate through a through thread. Super Sentai doesn't really worry about that. Zenkaiger came through and said that all the different Ranger worlds are a multiverse now. All the different Sentai worlds are a multiverse now. So, okay, that solves that problem, I guess. And that's how they did it, is that, the majority of Super Sentai series do not happen in the same universe. I don't know what happened with Gokaiger. I guess that they're in the universe where all of them exist together. I don't know, but either way, Power Rangers on the other end has tried from the beginning to tell a story that keeps a concurrent theme, that there are a group of people who have set out to fight an interconnected evil that sometimes takes the form of Dark Spectre and sometimes takes the form of his subordinates acting on his will. And so of course, Dark Spectre didn't really kind of come to be until Power Rangers in Space, because he was Malagor in the Power Rangers Turbo movie. They had that scary suits. They were like, we might as well use it. And so when it comes to unifying the Power Rangers story, the characters have a very hard time of communicating that they're all part of one force. Because again, it's not a fault of Super Sentai, because that's their goal, is to tell a new story every 2 years so it can keep selling toys. I mean, that's the point of it, right? But Power Rangers can't belong to that audience any longer because, not just because Hasbro wants to change it, but also because American entertainment sensibilities are very different around how children can be exposed to violence. And believe it or not, Power Rangers has a lot of guns, has a lot of swords, has a lot of explosions. And as I said, every episode crescendos with a monster dying, usually being like exploded, dying. It's not even like one of those poetic deaths. It's like a ruthless kablooey. You're gone forever now. You're not even dust now, And so when it comes to trying to fit that into that 5 to 8-year-old market, that's not going to work anymore. And you can't just teleport the way Power Rangers has been executed into the 8 to 14-year-old market, because they don't like that slapstick style storytelling. They don't like those Bulk and Skull style characters that are just sort of on the side to be, jokes, the joke characters, the comedic relief character, rather. And it's not against Bulk and Skull's actors or how those characters were performed back in the day, but the Three Stooges style comedy has run its course. And it doesn't really work that well with the 8 to 14-year-old market. They don't really appreciate that physical comedy as opposed to they appreciate the situational, like, I can relate to that comedy. Because again, littler kids like the concept of someone being hit in the face with a pie because it is lol random. Why would someone hit someone with a pie? That's so silly. But an 8-year-old and a 14-year-old, they don't really jive with that. That's just like, okay, well, that's kind of funny, I guess, because I wasn't expecting it, but I don't get why it happened. And that's kind of where Power Rangers finds itself, is that the Hayam Saban formula, Shuki Levy formula of, high action, high violence, funny thing with civilians, moral at the end, very threadbare, very dated. And so again, that's not going to transport up to the 8 to 14-year-old market. Not that, again, you have to strip out all of the happy-go-lucky fun moments, because if you remember, Buffy had those, Angel had those, the CW shows, of course, had those. Those were marketed toward this age demographic. And this still accomplishes selling the toys. Not so much that 14-year-olds are going to buy those, but their little brothers who are watching the show with them will pick up those toys because their older brother likes that so much. And because the little brother has it, well, the 14-year-old's going to buckle one of those Christmases and he's going to want the whole set himself. So that's fine. We can work that out. But what I want to stress is that Hasbro finds themselves in a very unique opportunity that Disney was the last time that they really tried to up the ante with Power Rangers. You remember in RPM, Venjix was just straight up the Terminator. He was just straight up Skynet. And ran humanity into one city, ran us all down into one city. It was pretty crazy. I hate this is on Reddit. Anyway, so here you have it. Venjix was the big sort of Terminator character, and he had wiped out humanity. And in that process, he had presumably wiped out the other Power Rangers. It's a pretty heavy story to tell that even SPD, presumably this happens after SPD, of course, because SPD isn't recovering from Venjix. So this presumably happened sometime in 2030, 2045, whatever, is when Venjix shows up and does what he does. And that means that Venjix wipes out every team. They're not just chilling out while the grinders are going around and obliterating human beings left and right. They're not chilling out and letting that happen. That means that Venjix overwhelmed them and wiped them out. That is a huge concept to just weigh a kid with. And I know I say that a lot, but there's a lot of heavy concepts that Disney tried to bring through with this that kind of need to re-inhabit the thinking about how to incorporate, how to execute a Power Rangers story. But as I said, the violence that's in the story warrants a heavier, the violence that's in the visuals. The violence that's in the visuals warrants a heavier story. And that's what you're running into with this reboot that they're working on with Disney. Is I imagine the Percy Jackson guys are very vexed by this concept, by trying to make sense of what a new Power Ranger could be while trying to obey this appeal to the 5 to 8-year-olds, because Hasbro has made no illusion that they're going to try and move the brand upward. This comes in concert with kids aren't playing with toys. See if I can find a news article to bring up while I'm talking about this, so it looks like we're doing something, helpful. Let's see. There we go. So these Mattel research here says that the kids are not playing with the toys enough, I guess. And in reality, it's because the kids mostly engage with digital entertainment now. That is to say that they are watching shorts, they're watching YouTube videos, they're watching, Minecraft videos on YouTube, that kind of stuff. They're playing video games, of course. They're playing Minecraft. They're playing other games that are like that. Roblox, as we've heard so much about in recent years. They're playing all that, and the reality is that like they're not engaging with the hard plastic toys. And so another limiter on the Power Rangers brand growing up, if you will, another limiter has been removed. You know, we're free of having to appeal to that 5 to 8 year old market because those kids, they aren't buying the toys. They're not interacting with the toys anymore, or at least not as much. So we don't have to worry about appealing to them as much because that market is gone. Rather, they will pick up what toys are available when they see their older brother playing the video game. And you don't have to go like Dark Souls with Power Rangers. I think that's like way, way, way out of pocket. That's not necessary. But if you step back and you created a hero shooter like Overwatch, right? Like Overwatch, or Marvel Rivals, of course, does very well. But I think that's some of that's to do with the butts, and you can't really do that with Power Rangers. Though I would like to see what they could do to Trakina. Yeah, Trakina. Anyway, so the toys aren't being played with, so you don't have to worry about that demographic anymore. You can appeal to them through games. And if you make the games all ages, like a hero shooter like Overwatch, then you don't need to worry about having a trapped audience. You don't need to worry about having the Elden Ring audience, where it's mostly guys that are in their late teens to mid 30s playing that, which again is outside of where Hasbro's main audience is. So I think that they're in a prime position right now to age up the brand into something that's much more compatible with the violence that's featured in the visuals. I don't know if the violence is going to be retained. This is the other thing, guys. How do you think this is going to go? Because like Disney may decide with Hasbro to strip out the majority of the violence. I know that's a corner of the show, but if you're going to keep like appealing to children, you got to strip out that violence. So I don't know what the Power Rangers get up to if they're not kicking butt. But if you're going to keep appealing to that 8 to 5 year old market, I'm just going to say 8 to 5 because I'm stuck on 8. Okay, sorry. But if you're going to keep appealing to that 8 to 5 year old market, you're going to end up having to strip out that violence. And it's not so much that the moms of America are going to be a huge impediment to you because these kids just watch this stuff all the time. But Power Rangers is wildly out of step with its neighbors. So the kids just aren't going to absorb it. They're not going to hang with it. Blazing the Monster Machines, CGI animated. Paw Patrol, CGI animated. A lot of the Disney children's shows, animated. A lot of Nickelodeon children's shows, CGI animated. So like what are you going to do? You got a live action show with a bunch of live action people running around. And a lot of the demographic you're aiming to does not engage with media that looks like that. There's really like Miss Rachel is like one of the few live action children's entertainers out there. Feel however you like about her, but she's just an Instagram weirdo. There's not like some huge corporation making shows with her. She's just some person that decided to record herself singing songs, and that's it. Again, feel however you like about Miss Rachel, but she's one of the few of them that are left out there. Like even Blippi has disappeared. I don't know if anybody remembers Blippi, but that guy was around for a while. I don't know if he got brought up on criminal charges though. I'm not trying to say anything bad about the guy, but I think I remember hearing something about that, or maybe it was a joke. I'm not sure. But yeah, the Blippi guy, he's even kind of gone out because eventually you just kind of run out of stuff you can do as a guy that goes to places and talks about things. So you've been to places, you've talked about the things. Now what, Mr. Blippi? Now what? But that's usually when they see a live action person, that is going to be very like, this is how you count. We are going to go to the trash dump today, and we're going to see how trash is processed into new objects. That's right. Plastic doesn't disappear forever, guys. That's usually what a live action person is doing for children's media now. It's not people doing things. Even Barney's animated now. So it's like this whole demographic that Hasbro's trying to capture just does not exist for them. Would an animated Power Rangers show work? Saban was going to try it, but they apparently gave up on it. And I think that's chiefly because, again, the problem is that what makes Power Rangers unique and stands out is that it is a live action production. When you take that away, it's just another CGI action show for kids. The miracle of it is that it, 60% of the budget to make it came from Japan. And that's where Hasbro has gone completely crazy by cutting that off, because now they have 100% of the cost of making this and none of the infrastructure to do it. Blows my mind. Blows my mind. So Austin McNeil says, "Hey pal, since the original 6 are going to keep their dino powers, are they going to get are there going to be Ninja Rangers as well?" No. The ninja thing is sort of useless. They don't really use their ninja powers for much of anything. They do flips and things like that, and they wear the costumes, certainly, but the ninja powers don't really ultimately evolve into anything. That's why I changed them into battleizers. So, and I know, again, like, people want the flow of the show as they remember it to go, and that's the whole point of this, is that I'm not doing that. And that's why, like I told you before, Jason gets his Gorilla Battleizer down in the Hollow Earth, because I like that Kong. I like that Kong tie-in. That's just fun. So, but that's what I'm doing with the Ninjetti, with the Battleizers, that kind of thing, is that, and the girls don't get them. Okay. And I'm not trying to be mean or anything or cut them out, but like I said, this isn't wish fulfillment. I'm not coming out and trying to make sure that, everybody gets their fair share. What I have to do is I have to sit down and follow the formula. In toy sales, girls don't usually interact with action toys. Again, they're out there. There are technicalities. Feel free to let me know all the girls that love Power Rangers. They're there. I know a few of them. My best friend's one of them. But they are rare, and they typically age out of it pretty quick. So that's why you don't see in the Power Rangers toys a lot of girl figures in any form. Battleizers, special armors, Zords, unless they're part of a collection, like get them all, get the whole team, they usually don't get bought. And again, this is what Lego found out when they did that study back in the mid-2010s, is that boys want to be the character they are playing with. The girls want the character they are playing with to become them. And so a boy does not want to become the Pink Ranger. A man may want to complete his collection of the Zeo team, the Mighty Morphin team, in space, whatever, with those figures. And that's why you find them for sale. They probably wouldn't be produced if it wasn't for that. And in fact, as I remember it, there really weren't any Pink or Yellow Ranger action figures for a while. I don't even think Power Rangers SPD put out a Pink Ranger action figure. Maybe not even a yellow one either. Maybe they did. I don't know. But I don't know who would have bought it. It's one of those things. It's like, we want to be fair, we want to be square, but the reality of how the market works has arrived, and there's no more of this, well, we're doing this to make a point kind of production stuff. And that's why I'm following that formula rather than wish fulfillment, where everybody gets a battleizer and it all looks cool. I'm trying to reformulate what Mighty Morphin was so that it can progress beyond itself, rather than people getting stuck on this is what it is. That's why I'm making sure that this feels like a standard Power Ranger series as opposed to the launch of the entire franchise. Because if people, again, as I said at the top, this is not going to be made into anything for real. It never can be. Legally, it can never be done. However, my intent is to produce something that has the structure to it to reformulate the entire franchise, to go straight up from here. So that Mighty Morphin is not the first, if you will, but it is my version of it, Season X, is not the first, if you will, but it is the first of the reboot. And so for new people coming into it, like kids and folks that are giving Power Rangers a try beyond when they last tuned in, Mighty Morphin, as I've done it, the Season X series, should feel like something not necessarily like modern Power Rangers. As we all know, that's not so great, but I'd like to aim for the Disney era, where the stories are pretty heavy, but the action figure emphasis is still there, and the emphasis on the role play toys is still there. But ultimately, the story revolves around getting kids to buy things. And that's what I'm trying to do. So that's why you see the decisions I make are so, they seem very exclusionary, I guess, of Trini and Kimberly. And again, that's not because I hate them or whatever. It is because I'm following the formula of a show that is made for, boys, and I'm trying to upgrade it for 8 to 14-year-olds. 8 to 14-year-olds kind of like the inter-character drama of Tommy and Kimberly being in love. They kind of like that. They don't necessarily have the nostalgia boner over it, but the fans that would tune into season X would kind of expect the two of those characters to have a fondness for each other, given where they come from in the original Mighty Morphin story. And so I've rolled those two expectations together into a new romance that starts off a little differently, but ultimately ends up in the same place. Because, like I said, I'm just trying to build something new out of something existing that feels familiar to everybody, but takes modern steps with it. That way, as we progress through these reboots, the story has a uniform progression to it. The big problem that came with Mighty Morphin is they ended them. If you remember, Master Vile crushed the power coins, and that led to, you remember, Adam having a wicked hard time. Adam, space, trying not to die after using a broken power coin. See if we can get away with showing this. But ooh, it's the Power Rangers official. Whoa, we might lose the stream, so just hang on to your butts if I disappear for a few minutes here. But if you remember, yes, broken Morpher. You see, it's a big deal. And there it is. The act that could have killed him. I like how his haircut goes back to the teenager haircut. That was funny. But again, like Adam in this moment was like, it was a big deal that this guy came back for just this one, this one ranger was able to reclaim bits and pieces of his coin enough to glue it back together to work for a few minutes. And even then, the power was failing him. He was being severely hurt himself just using that power, while Carlos was unable to morph due to having lost it to one of his child friends, one of the children he was taking care of. And so it was a really big deal that these guys lost their powers. And I think that was a really big mistake. Now, I know why they did it is because they ran out of Die Ranger footage, and they had to do something, and they had O-Ranger, and O-Ranger was, doing very well in Japan. Very, very well. It's still one of the most highly regarded Super Sentai series out there by the longtime fans. And so they had that right there, and that's why they went for it. They dove at that as hard as they could because that's all they had left to do. And that meant sacrificing the Mighty Morphin suits in order to progress into the Zeo suits. That meant that Master Vile had to destroy the coins, or somebody had to, in order to send them on the Zeo quest to go get their Zeo power crystals from their ancestors. So it's a big deal to have done this, and that I think was a really huge mistake. Rather than doing this, you just have to step back and borrow from like the Marvel and DC universe of how they treat heroes that don't necessarily work together every day. Kind of like how Flash and Captain Marvel don't necessarily, his name is Shazam now, that way we're not confusing Brie Larson. So you don't have Flash and Shazam doing too many crossovers that aren't Justice League oriented, despite existing in the same country together. Probably not that far away. I don't think Fawcett City is too far away from where Shazam is. And so you have this kind of attitude that like, oh yes, these heroes can exist in the same country, in the same timeline together at the same time, and they are busy dealing with threats that are separate from one another. But the key to making that work is a compounding timeline, because no matter how awful a threat is, there's always going to be people that will throw themselves at it. Okay, that again, think of that statement what you will, but what I really mean is that the Power Rangers are going to have other Power Rangers jump into their fights. Okay, so you're not going to have an invasionary force like the Machine Empire show up without other Power Rangers showing up to defend the Earth. That's pretty crazy that a whole Imperial invasionary force is attacking Angel Grove and some parts of California as well, and nobody else is responding. that's obviously not going to happen. So what you have to do is you have to compound the timeline in order to make sure that the new team has time to be established while the old team is finishing up something that has them busy. And that's why in my setting, we don't get rid of the Mighty Morphins. They are instead, the story moves on to Zeo because their conflict starts while the Mighty Morphins are in the Hollow Earth. So Zeo is defending the surface from the Machine Empire while Mighty Morphin is down in the Hollow Earth. When Mighty Morphin returns to the surface, Zeo's war is just about at its end. Okay, so that way you have the entire event, the catalyst, the conflict between Zeo and the Machine Empire being, clean of the Mighty Morphin influence without having to destroy Mighty Morphin's power set. And this is again where Super Sentai stayed pretty genius, because you see these 20 years later movies, these 10 years later movies, they should absolutely be doing this with Power Rangers. You cannot contractually tie up these actors for 10 years. No, that's not going to happen. You can get 5 years of a performance out of them and set them free for 5 years, then bring them back for a 10 years later reunion. And that's not going to be too hard on their career. They probably will appreciate coming back and revitalizing the role that started it all. And that's how it works in Japan, is that a lot of them, they go on to do other things, greater things. And some of them don't, though. They stay pretty close to the production, like Captain Marvelous's actor has. Again, that's largely because of how charming that guy is in that role. But instead, they made that decision to divorce the Mighty Morphins out and give these characters that were Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the Zeo powers. And I decided not to do that here. So when the story of Mighty Morphin Season X ends and we start moving into Zeo Season X, you're not going to see Tommy and Jason and the rest of those guys move on to Zeo. That's not how this works. You're going to meet Adam, who comes from the Hollow Earth. That's how I explained him arriving and being so capable. And a whole new team of Zeo Rangers, which include Rocky, Aisha, and Kat. Rocky, Tanya, and Kat, who are, no, it's Aisha. Sorry, it's Aisha. Aisha and Kat, who are different, and now a completely mysterious Zeo 5, which again will be like my own ground up creation because there wasn't anybody to take that over. In this setting, much in the way that Jen Scott was the leader of Time Force, where Wes was still the Red Ranger, he didn't call as many shots as Jen did. Adam, the Green Ranger, Zeo 4, will be calling most of the shots in this Zeo Season X story. And so that's how I'm explaining it. And Turbo, again, happens in a completely separate part of California, obeying the superhero rule, where if it's not happening in Angel Grove or Stone Canyon, the next town over, the Mighty Morphins won't be immediately involved. Of course, in space, I've taken everybody but Zane and Andros out of the in space team. And that's because I want to make sure that when we're telling the story of all of this happening here, you see you got the Thunder Dragon, the Dragon Thunder Zord there with the Astro Megaship. When I'm telling the story of how they're involved with this, Zane and Andros have been at war their entire lives. Their culture has been at war for their entire existence. The forces of Rita spread out across the universe, and Zordon was able to defeat her, but not all of them went away with their tail between their legs. Dark Spectre continued to vex the galaxy while Zordon was sealed behind the time barrier. And so KO-35 just caught the worst of it, being like Space Poland. Like one of the most conquested spaces in space is what KO-35 became. And that's why Andros and Zane are the only in-space Rangers, is because their culture, their people were only able to build 2 morphers that have remote access to the grid. So Cassie, Ashley, TJ, and Carlos are all Turbo Rangers. They don't become in space. It's just Andros and Zane, and they're the only 2. And their story is very dire. And it is very Astronema has KO-35 at the edge. There is no Dark Spectre calling her off. She is going to wipe out those people. if something isn't done. So that again, like that's where I'm breaking, like the Kit Kat here is I'm trying to make sure that all of this is layered in so everyone understands that this is all one story together as it unfolds, however long you guys want to support me telling it, as it unfolds, you're going to see the roots that I've put here, the seeds I put here manifest into the main story points that come out later on. It's not a coincidence that Zeo5 is a mysterious character. That matters to the story of Turbo. But we'll have to get there when we get there. I still have Save the Hollow Earth to tell, and that's a massive story. So far, that's going to be 3 lore videos, guys. It's going to be 3 lore videos to tell that story. Absolutely bonkers amount of storytelling to get through. But Sakura Amita asked, do you remember that Powerpuff Girls CW show was canceled? Yeah, rightfully so. It was another one that mistook what, it did the She-Hulk thing where a bunch of office women got together and pet office men, if you will, purse puppy office men got together and decided, gee, wouldn't it be funny if we told a Amy Schumer themed story about superheroes. And of course, like in the era of The Boys, that probably wouldn't have been such a bomb, but because back then we were still trying to see superheroes as aspirational figures, the Powerpuff Girls story that CW put out was very atrocious. So yeah, rightfully so, that was canceled, and I hope it never sees the light of day again. Like, it was unfortunate enough that the footage, the trailer to it surfaced. I hope none of the rest of it ever comes out. It's completely lost media. They bury that next to the ET Nintendo copies. Power Rangers is now the Saints Row of superheroes. Yeah, it's getting pretty rough out there, to be honest with you, especially with these delays, with these like absences of programming. How did Jason get together with the princess of the underground world? So in this setting, if you're not familiar, I've got to go dig that picture out now. Where did I put it? Come on. Where did we put Jason and princess? Oh, it must be a while back here. Just a second, guys. I'll dig up a picture of it. It's around here somewhere. Let's see. So in this setting, as I said, I'll just bring up the princess. I can't find the picture at the moment. So in my setting, we have stepped out of the flow of events and we have entered into a new one. And this is the Hollow Earth. We have the princess here. This is Princess Charofrey. Princess Charofrey, and she is the daughter of King Aranir, who is the king of Urvakita. I know I'm throwing a lot of proper nouns at you. It'll make sense when I have I have like the trailer set up in the opening because it shows all of that, but I haven't got it all animated yet. So the way that Jason meets her is that Vexala initially tries to take over the Hollow Earth in season X2, and it doesn't go well. She doesn't get much further than the entrance to the Hollow Earth in Tibet. And of course, the Rangers are there, and King Aranir is there to defend the gateway. And this is what prompts her to go after Vile later on. But Vexala wants that power because in the Hollow Earth, there are lost Zords, there are lost artifacts from the age of the Atlanteans, there's old magic, there's even like crystals that I'll show you guys in a few minutes here what those characters are too. Even crystals that carry like immense grid power. It's where the Zords come from. It's irradiated. So the crystals release grid energy, and that grid energy attaches itself to the rock, and the rock eventually transforms into a Zordling egg. And I'll show you those in a minute. And so that's where like the Hollow Earth fits into the greater Power Ranger lore. It's not just a location where the fight's happening, is that this is where Zords come from. And that's why the Thunder Zords agree to go back and defend their homeland. And this all matters to how Jason meets the princess, is because when she's first imperiled, Jason is defending the Hollow Earth. And to the Hollow Earth inhabitants, the surface world dwellers are a complete mystery to them. They've never seen them before. King Aronir only tells the story that the surface dwellers aren't people that the people of the Hollow Earth should be even knowing about. That our way of life is I would say just too fast, I guess would be the simple way to explain it. And so when she meets Jason through the barrier, they don't get the touch. They don't get the touch. When she meets Jason through the barrier, she witnesses his courage and bravery. And she'd never seen someone self-sacrifice in this way. And that's what makes Jason separate from Tommy in this, is that Jason's the one that's like constantly throwing himself headfirst into violence, headfirst into defense of people. And that's what wins Charofrey over for him. So when they're finally able to go into the Hollow Earth, she can do more than give him battleizers, all right? And that's what makes it through the barrier in the initial conflict when they're defending the Hollow Earth from Vexala trying to get through at the end of Season X2, is because the Cerberus Zord is used to defend the barrier. So the barrier is dropped by King Aronir, who has the only key to do that. That's Larigo's wand, if you remember from Turbo. And Larigo used to inhabit the Hollow Earth. He's one of the ones that survived the flood of Earth that was triggered by Zordon's battle with Rita. And so when Aronir drops that barrier, the Cerberus is able to travel through and act as a defender to aid the Power Rangers. And that is Charofrey's Zord that she raised from birth in the Zordling hatchery that I was talking about just a minute ago. And so that's where their bond comes from, is Charofrey from afar has admired Jason. So when they're finally able to meet face to face, when they go into the Hollow Earth, it's a pretty big deal. It's a pretty big deal. And they, of course, are very happy to see each other and, get together. Not in the funny, hard to explain to your parents way. Get together as in the sense like they're finally able to hug and kiss. And that's it. That's it. It's still a Power Ranger show. All right, guys, calm down. So I posted some stuff the other day, last night rather, that showed off Rhylight. And so Rhylight is one of Vexala's generals down here. And as you can see, he's pretty powerful. He's pretty tall, about 8 feet tall. He's made out of volcanic rock and the yellow crystals that you see in the background. And so that's why he's giving off steam and things like that. And so he's a pretty formidable foe. He's the reason why Jason ends up summoning the gorilla Ninjetti battleizer. And, you'll see how that goes. I think I can animate that. If not, I can animate a few parts of it that'll make it look cool. And, but yeah, this is the initial conflict between the two of them where he severely damages the Cerberus battleizer armor. And Jason is out of the fight for a day or two. So, as you can see, again, like he's pretty powerful. He's able to manhandle Jason pretty easily without much hassle, I guess you might say. And where did I put her picture? Did I not download it? Come on. Sorry, I've got Quaria was the other one I wanted to show you guys, but I didn't bring up hers. There it is. So Quaria is the other one, the other general that Vexala has created from the crystals. And she's more of a like ninja assassin type character. And so her claw marks act as an infection to grid energy. And it can destabilize the ability to stay morphed if you take too many slashes from her claws. And so that's her innate ability that makes her a huge threat to the Rangers, is that every claw mark cuts through the grid energy that makes their suits. So too many attacks and they'll finally hit flesh, and too many attacks and they'll finally lose their ability to stay morphed for the fight. So that's Quaria, though. You'll see more of her. She's kind of like I wouldn't say she's Scorpina. She's more of a Nadira, probably be a better comparison. Nadira. And then we have the Gemarines, and these characters are, of course, as you can see, animated and hostile blue crystals. They contain, as I said, these are grid energy, so they contain grid energy. It makes them difficult for the Power Rangers to deal with because their weapons can disrupt the grid energy that makes their suits, much like Quaria, but not to the same effect. It just ouchies a lot when these guys hit you. And like I said, they're made out of that volcanic rocks. That's why they have steam rising out of them rather than like icy fog, I guess. And so that's the henchmen that Vixala creates for the Hollow Earth journey. So now over on X.com, Sakuramita asked for my help on some stuff, I think. Let's have a look at that. Where did that screen go? Damn. I have too many tabs open. I'm sorry, guys. Too many tabs open, too little time. So, Sakuramita asked some questions. And so, Sakuramita says, I created a image of a symbiote goddess that inspired by Izanami and her unlikable son. I managed to make the mother of my own, but okay, I think maybe mother of my own character, but the son part is a headache, especially the AI doesn't understand hairstyle. So I asked words of advice for improvement. So when we're designing these sort of things, the AI doesn't know when you give it like copyright terms, it doesn't know exactly what you're asking for. And so as I can see here, you've kind of directed it to have the symbiote behave like roots. And so this character sort of looks like they're rooted to the ground as opposed to spreading themselves into the ground as a symbiote would be doing, I guess. I assume that's the intent here, is that it should be growing out of the character rather than in. And so when we're communicating this stuff, you want to like talk about the symbiote like it is a living slime. If you can find like how there's a liquid material that Mercedes uses to make brakes, and it behaves to magnetism and it gets all spiky. But if you could describe to the AI a string like, oh, it's ferrofluid, I think is what it's called. Fero fluid. If you describe to it ferrofluid that is biologically shaped, organic shaped ferrofluid, it should behave more like Venom did in the Spider-Man 3 movie, where it was sort of like a slime monster that grew teeth and got very angry. And I think that'll help communicate what you're doing here, where the character should be infecting the world around her rather than the world growing into her. And so I think that'll help communicate the effort that you're doing here. And you want to describe that as like, explain that as the outfit nears the ground, it transforms into an organic ferrofluid, organic shaped ferrofluid. And that ferrofluid is spreading into the ground in an infectious manner or in an infecting way. Some adjective that explains that the symbiote is behaving. I wouldn't describe it as a symbiote because it doesn't know what that is. But again, it doesn't have a clear eye and a clear idea anyway. I wouldn't describe it that way. But like I said, work out the adjective necessary to explain that this, ichor that is leaving the form of this character is inhabiting the world in an unhappy way. And that can better communicate, I guess, what's the AI, what you're trying to get across to it. And I can't guarantee that'll work, but like I said, the ferrofluid looks alien, and the AI understands that it's supposed to have like an alien appearance to it. So that'll give it like a texture rather than just being oil that's veiny. And that's what I'm trying to give you, is like a textured liquid rather than like just oil that's veiny. And again, like that's, you're dealing with Marvelous as your base image. And so what you might want to do is jump over to, are you verified? No, you're not. Okay. So you might want to jump over to the free Chat GPT and drop that image in and ask it to describe the character if you want to keep the form and kind of general aesthetic of Marvelous, but kind of have your own character out of that, ask Midjourney to tear that down to, ask ChatGPT to write a text-only prompt for Midjourney and base it off that image that you have submitted to it. Excuse me, didn't mean to do that. Base it off that image that you have submitted to it, and that will tell the AI to go through and create a description. Now you're going to divorce the image now. You're going to leave that image alone. It's done. It's gone. You're going to run over to your AI and then feed that text description into the image generator. And that should give you an original character that is wearing the same clothes, has roughly the same visual appeal as Marvelous, but have a different face and perhaps a different mixture of colors. So the vest might not be black and red. It might be a different color. It might just be black. It could be gold. Who knows? But in that way, you create a more copyright defensible character. And also with that character description, you can then come in and say like liquid ferrofluid costume, that sort of thing. You don't want to describe blood, obviously, but you want to describe like for this guy, you've got that ferrofluid that has been dyed like hot rod red. You want to avoid terms like blood and things like that because the AI is either going to ignore it or kick it as an SFW violation. So try to like find the color out there, like Google the color name of the appropriate shade that you want that carnage like symbiote to appear as, and then use language that incorporates that specific color. Like I said, it could be hot rod red. It could be ox blood red. I would get away from the blood part though. I really would. I wouldn't use the blood terminology. And then of course, in the background, you're dealing with it infecting the space. Again, what is an interesting feature about the free pick suite that I use is it allows you to upload the image and then it will give you a text prompt of what it thinks it's looking at. So it will describe the image back to you if you upload it in that specific field. And so that way you understand the language that that AI is communicating in, not so much that you had it translate that to a text prompt. It's more to understand what that AI will take for a description. So if you're working with ChatGPT as the rendering device, using the Midjourney prompt is going to help because OpenAI basically ate that, prompt construction for Midjourney's image ability. So whatever ChatGPT replies to you with under that, base a text prompt off of this image, whatever Midjourney responds with is going to be the language that its own internal image generator responds to. And what that means is that when it says like, this coat is made out of cotton, and as well as I do, that is a wool captain's coat, you now understand how the Midjourney is reading that surface in that particular image you sent it, okay? And from there, when you send higher quality images, it might identify it as wool or still cotton, maybe nylon, whatever. But you're understanding now how the machine's eye views this, so you can communicate back to it using that language to get a more accurate result. Because what you can't do is force it to understand. It's just not equipped to understand what the hell a symbiote is. It doesn't really know what a venom is because there's so many different data points to pull from for Venom from Spider-Man. Because it's not just Venom the character. There's Venom toxins, all sorts of, not like Batman style, but like there's Venom poisons and things like that that are scattered all through the data points that are related to Spider-Man within the AI's data pool. Now, I know that's not the term that AI developers use, but that's what I use to explain where the AI gets its visuals from. And so when you say like, based off the design of Venom from Spider-Man, it has 20 billion different results to try and pull from. And so that's why you just don't bother with the copyright names of any of it because it's going to get it wrong every time. You got to go in and specifically talk to it about what you want out of it, and you're going to have to massage it as well. So you're going to get a result and it's kind of close. So you got to change the language just a little bit in that area where it's missing and see if that works. And then something else is going to pop off and break. So you got to go back through and tell it to fix that part and so on and so forth until you get the perfect image. And again, like that's how I designed all the characters. When you get down to like these Hollow Earth designs, let me see if I can find one of those promos real quick. Hold on. Just a second here. Yeah, this one's good enough. So this was not like Greek guy wearing red diamond belt Tyrannosaurus armor. I had to talk to the AI and go through several stages of understanding how it was going to receive directions to mingle like Far Eastern tiger martial artist style fashion, how it was going to marry that with Greek style fashion, then how it was going to marry barbarian and centurion fashion. And then I had to read what it was going to understand to accomplish those diamond belt buckles, because you tell a diamond and it's just going to assume the rock that goes in a ring. It's not going to assume that you're looking for a massive glass gemstone. So that's what I had to tell it was bigger belt buckle framed in gold with centerpiece made of red glass gemstone. And so that way it understood the material, and that way it was communicated more effectively. That's the other thing you're going to find is as you're describing this stuff, it helps to tell it that you're looking for a material that it's made out of. The reason why, you see this right here with the Thunderzord represented this way, you can see all the paint lines on it, right? And the seams on it and stuff like that. Well, this is a wholly new generation. This is not the existing Thunderzord. This is a new Thunderzord that has been generated out of the original, certainly, but this is a new one. And what I gave it directions to do is to create this new one with the knowledge that it is a costume that's made out of fiberglass, it's made out of metal, that uses leather, that uses latex, that uses painted panels. And that way it gives off the appearance of the actual show's aesthetic, as opposed to like a perfect giant robot that has never existed in the Power Rangers universe. And that's where matching the aesthetic matters in all of this. Unless you're trying to change the aesthetic. That's, I'm trying to match it, try and prove to Hasbro that it's not as hard as they're making it out to be to make this work. That's what chiefly I'm here to do. That's what started this whole experiment, was to prove to Hasbro, dude, you're trying too hard. And here again, even does your adult brain care if these paint lines don't line up, that there's a seam there? No. Your adult brain is like, dude, that's a cool robot. That's it. That's all it has to be. And a lot of people kind of miss the point of when we're trying to reimagine this stuff, and they go way overboard with it. So either way, you're right. I am tired. So I probably will be ending this. Wow, 2.5 hours of talking about Power Rangers. Golly. Either way, I do appreciate you guys showing up for all this. And I hope that this advice about prompt creating and what I've been talking about with the story helps you guys on your process of creating this stuff. Again, this will be up for you guys to go back and review, take a look at. I realize I didn't cross as much lore as I should have. I didn't get to save the Hollow Earth and how all that comes to be. But man, I did get to explain a lot of the impetus for why this is happening. So I appreciate you guys riding along with me on that as I explained how all this happened to become, in your face, happening right now. And well, you're welcome, Sakura Mita. I'm happy I can help, and I hope that works for you. If not, we'll keep banging out a solution, and hopefully that works out. So for now, though, I am going to leave you with the love song that I created for Tommy and Kimberly. You could think however you like about that, but I happen to think it's pretty catchy. So I hope you enjoy it, and we'll catch you in the next one. And as always, guys, please keep a cool head out there, and good luck.